Fly Show. I am Michael Severe. We are live inside the Let It Fly Sports Bar in beautiful downtown Omaha in the Capital District. This is a unique show. We are taping this on Thursday night. You probably know that is Halloween and also Josh Jones' birthday. So Josh is not here with me today. We don't have a guest. I tried to get a guest host, but of course everybody's going out, party time, getting jiggy with it. I believe they still do that. But yeah, so it's just me. What we're going to do is we're going to preview UCLA and Nebraska. I got plenty of numbers to break down, give you a good evaluation of what to expect Saturday at 2:30 in Memorial Stadium. As I mentioned, we're inside the Let It Fly Sports Bar. Lots to do this weekend, including Friday night, one of the biggest volleyball matches of the season. As you know, if you're a Nebraska volleyball fan, Nebraska, Wisconsin, it is a rivalry unlike many other. And it's going to be a heck of a matchup. And it's Friday night, 8 p.m. start. You can come on down to the sports bar, hang out, watch the volleyball match. It's going to be great. And then Creighton's playing Friday night as well, a little bit earlier against St. John's, and then Villanova on Sunday. At home Sunday, Villanova, a very special day for volleyball. It's going to be fun there if you're going to go and check that out. It should be really fun, as I mentioned. This is also sponsored by Bud Light. Our friends at Bud Light want to tell you whether you're going out, staying home, going to your man cave, coming over here to Let It Fly Sports Bar, no matter what you're doing, watching volleyball, some great spikes, or watching football, some touchdowns or dunks or three-pointers or whatever else. It's easy drinking and easy going throughout Nebraska, easy to drink and easy to enjoy. Thank you to Bud Light, our presenting sponsor.
On a Sunday.
Gotta go. I forgot the sausage.
You guys ready to eat? There you go.
On a Sunday.
I mentioned a lot going on. I talked about Friday. Saturday, of course, got a big one in college football. Come on out early. Get here right when the doors are opening, and you're going to get number 3 versus number 4. You're going to get Penn State and Ohio State at Penn State in Happy Valley. Now, it's not going to be a whiteout. Well, it could be, but it's a daytime game, so it's not the same when it's daytime. That starts at 11 a.m. on Big Fox. And then, of course, Nebraska plays UCLA, one of the craziest series that Nebraska's ever had. You know, it's not – obviously, they don't play UCLA a lot. But the times they played UCLA, for whatever reason, it's been a little slice of history. I mean, you go back to one of the craziest runs in Nebraska football history in 1983, and you have Mike Rozier going one way all the way to the side of the field and then stopping and coming all the way back to the other side of the field and scoring from like the 5-yard line. Ran like 100 yards to get 5 yards. That's a famous one. Of course, the game when Nebraska goes out to an early lead and all of a sudden Taylor Martinez somehow is injured. It happened in the locker room or what, we don't know. And UCLA comes all the way back and beats Nebraska, and then it's famous because Tommy Frazier then criticizes the team, and Bo Pelini criticizes Tommy Frazier. It's a lot of crazy stuff has happened over the years when Nebraska matches up with UCLA, including the last couple times they played where you had some really great high-scoring matchups. You had quarterbacks having big days as well, so we look forward to that. Now, I'm going to break it down, starting with the fact that unlike some of the games Nebraska's played this year, you know, UCLA has only won 2 games this season. They won the opening game against Hawaii, and then going in their bye week 2 weeks ago, they beat Rutgers. And since Nebraska played Rutgers, they have been horrible. The Scarlet Knights have been brutal. They have not won since then. They haven't scored a lot. They've struggled a lot. They gave up more points than UCLA scored all year. It was a very strange matchup, but UCLA got the win to move to 2 wins. But what makes this interesting is Nebraska's matchups with UCLA. I'll give you a couple examples. I was mentioning this to Val. By the way, I got a little Elvis reference coming up in our keys to the game. It's all dedicated to Val. Bruins are second to last in big plays, long plays from scrimmage, second to last in the Big Ten. In 7 games, that's all they played. They're also 126th in college football. There's 134 teams. They're 126. UCLA offensively ranks 90th or lower in points per game, yards per game, points per play, and yards play. What is Nebraska best at? Defense. Outside of the Indiana game, they've played very good defense, right? So that's a good matchup for Nebraska. Bruins are also last in the FBS in opponents' third down conversions, meaning, as you know, your opponent converts on third down. at a 54% clip. By far, they're the worst in college football among Power 4 or Power 5 teams. And as I told Val earlier, and he said, what? Worst run game in the Big Ten. 5th worst run game in all of college football. You want to take a wild guess, Phil, how much they average per carry UCLA's run game? Wild guess? That would be funny. Man, they would kick them out of college football. 2.75, which is low. Which is low. That would be incredible. Be nuts. Also, another thing that UCLA has struggled at that Nebraska is very good at, they allow a ton of havoc. If you don't know what havoc is, havoc counts up sacks, passes defended, forced fumbles. It's just you making an impact on the other team defensively. One of the worst teams in college football at havoc allowed is UCLA. They are 118th, while Nebraska is 17th in causing havoc. So you got a team that causes a lot of havoc, and you got a team that gives up a lot of havoc. So that's a good news for Nebraska. Also, Ethan Garbers, the quarterback for UCLA, 9 interceptions. He's only played 6 games. He's got 9 interceptions. He's tied for the lead in the Big Ten. And if you kind of average it out, he's really leading the country in interceptions per games played because he's only played 6 games. Team's also allowed 8 fumbles, only lost 3, but if the team fumbles enough, it's going to end up coming around to where you're going to lose more of those. And then the last part, in terms of havoc and when Nebraska does well, Nebraska's averaged about an interception a game so far this season. I mentioned the 9 interceptions that Garbers throws. Also, 30 passes defended and 20 sacks UCLA has given up, the most amount of sacks in 7 games in the Big Ten. Here's one of the weirder stats for the week. It's very strange because we've talked a lot about Nebraska and finishing drive rate and getting points, right? Nebraska in conference play is averaging just 18 points a game. 18 points a game in conference play. 2 and 3 in conference play. But Nebraska is very good at having successful drives, driving the ball over the opponent's 40-yard line. Problem is, as good as they are at that, they're as bad at actually scoring once they do it. They have, over the course of the season, moved into that area the 11th most in college football. It's a percentage-wise, right? But on the other hand, when they get there, they're only scoring 117th in the country in terms of points. But the good news is UCLA allows more teams to cross that 40-yard line and have successful drives, and they're worst in the country once they allow a team to do it at giving up points based on only playing 7 games. They're 132nd in allowing teams to cross the 40, 115th in opponents' points once you do. So the question is, can Nebraska figure out how to finish the drive against a team that's letting everyone finish drives? I'll give you an example of just how many they allow. So 29 times teams have entered the red zone against UCLA. 27 times they've scored with 21 touchdowns. So it's virtually a lock when you get in the red zone that you're going to score on UCLA. 93% of the time, one of the worst in the country. Nebraska's scoring offense, 68%, not good, not good. 130th in the country. So you've got this dichotomy. You've got a team who lets everybody score, and you got a team in Nebraska who doesn't necessarily score enough when they get down there. It is one of the biggest arguments when you discuss Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator, because traditionally throughout his career, his teams haven't been good at this. He's really only had 1 year at South Carolina, the second to last year there, where he achieved at an above average level. All the other times, he was either poor or average. A couple years, he was bad. So I don't know what's going to happen with Marcus Satterfield for the end of the season. I don't know if Coach Rule keeps him around. I have no idea. I just know that there's nothing he's done so far this year, in my opinion, that looks successful once you get into the scoring range. Yes, Nebraska's moved the ball from the 20 past the 40 to the 20, but once they get through there, not good enough. Not good enough in any way to be able to contend in the Big Ten or even be successful overall, right? One more thing before we get to some keys and talk a little bit more about the game. Pass defense-wise, prediction for you. Dylan Raiola has his best passing game of the year on Saturday. Now, we may get some crazy wind. It may rain. Last time I looked, it was like a 60% chance of rain. So maybe that could harm something. But if the rain holds off, it's not really that bad. It's not that windy. This is a great matchup for Nebraska. Raiola played much better against Ohio State. He missed a couple of throws, but he played better than he had against Indiana. UCLA is second to last in pass defense in the Big Ten. They've allowed 14 touchdowns and only had 4 interceptions. They allow almost 70% completion rate, which is last in the Big Ten and 5th worst in the – maybe you're developing a sense of this is a bad defense. You're right. It's a bad defense. Against the pass, they're bad. 147 passer rating, 5th worst again in the Power 4. They've allowed 76 passing plays of 10 or more yards. That's the most in the Big Ten in 7 games. They've allowed a lot of 30-plus, and they've allowed more 50-plus in 7 games than any other team in the Big Ten. As I said, not a good defense, especially when it comes to stopping the pass. Now, they're a good run defense, but there's a reason for that. If you're an offensive coordinator and you look at this team and you go, I can pass every play and average 8 yards an attempt, why run the ball? I think that's the reason why they have a good run defense, because people don't try to run against them. Special teams-wise, you know, the evil words, special teams. For Nebraska, UCLA, fewest touchbacks in the Big Ten, which means Nebraska's going to have a lot of opportunities to return kicks if UCLA is kicking off. Nebraska is tied for the fewest opponents' touchbacks. So Nebraska's going to return the ball anyway, and UCLA doesn't kick the ball in the end zone. So we're going to get some of those. Look for later in the keys for that. 13 of 32, NU tied with Washington, allowing the most punt returns for 20-plus yards. There's only 3, but there's only 2 teams in all the Big Ten that's allowed that many. So scary for Nebraska in terms of punt returns. And then one of the craziest stats, UCLA has only forced 2.9 punts a game. Multiple games where they haven't forced a punt, and they are, again, last in FBS in terms of forcing a punt. This is not a good defense. Earlier, Val asked me if I thought Nebraska was going to win, if they're going to qualify for a bowl game. Obviously, if they win this game, it's the 6th win they qualify. If they don't win this game, it won't be because UCLA beat them, in my opinion. It'll be because Nebraska beat themselves. And we've seen that, right? We saw it against Illinois. They did so many things against Illinois to beat themselves. But this defense is porous. They allow anybody with a decent arm to throw the ball. Now, when they played against Rutgers 2 weeks ago, Calcamanus, as we know, is not a great quarterback. We've seen him. We saw him play against Nebraska. He had moments where he was making things happen. So Dylan Raiola should have a huge day on Saturday at 2:30. Reminder, if you're going to come to Let It Fly on Saturday to check out our college football watch party and see Ohio State at Penn State and Nebraska and UCLA, one of the great things you can grab, this is the twin pretzel combination. You've got the beer cheese, you got the honey mustard. This is a great deal for the table. Everybody can pull a little bit off, do some dipping, however you want. But it is a great thing to get if you're going to come on a Saturday. And also, on Saturday, we got drink specials and also have food specials as well on Saturday and Sunday. Sunday's obviously NFL day, so tons of going on with the NFL on Sunday. So we'll also have an NFL watch party here at Let It Fly Sports Bar. Let's get to our game keys. But before we do that, Gianna, put your helmet on. Get her helmet on. Since it is Halloween, we want to have somebody dressed up in a costume. It would not be me because I've never done it. Take your helmet and come over here. You don't want to come on and get on camera? Come on over here. Grab your helmet and come on. All the times you're not shy, all the times in the world that you're not shy. You going to be shy now? Come on over. Let's see. We have live from space, direct from the solar system, we have an astronaut. Isn't that awesome? Say hi. You gonna wave? Yeah, wave. Yeah, say hi. How you doing? Are you gonna go trick-or-treating? What kind of candy do you want? Marshmallows are candy? I didn't know that was a candy. All right, you have fun trick-or-treating, okay? All right? Okay. We'll see you later. Happy Halloween. Good. See, we got I don't do Halloween. My wife does Halloween. She makes these costumes for the kids every year, and they go off and do whatever they're going to do on Halloween, and I stay home and I just hand out the candy. And it's Thursday night, so I'll be watching the NFL while handing out the candy. Hopefully you had a wonderful Halloween. Let's get the game keys. As always, there is some sort of theme, and there is a music theme this time. Now, I'm in the studio with Val, who is just 21 years old, and Phil, who's like, you 30, Phil? 39? You don't act 39. So 39. Are you familiar with the band Aha? Aha? Aha. One of the greatest music videos ever made. Aha had. The funny thing about the song was it had this black and white animation into reality that nobody had done before, and so it was huge. But that big song was called Take On Me. That was the song. And that is a big part of our number one key. Nebraska's defense, take the ball away, take on and take down Ethan Garber's the quarterback. And they can do it. I mentioned it. Bruins Havoc allowing 118th in the country, 20 sacks. Nebraska's top 20 in getting havoc. You have got to, they don't run the ball well. You've got to get in the backfield. You've got to hit Garbers. When he gets rid of the ball quickly, you've got to take advantage of his turnover-worthy plays at times. It's a great opportunity for Nebraska's defense to eat on Saturday. And I don't mean after the game. I mean during the game. Eating is what they could do. So take on me when it comes to havoc and taking the ball away from UCLA. Key number 2. Second key. So growing up, I grew up with, my dad was up there. He was 59 when I was born. So he was an older gentleman. Loved the Temptations. He loved them. So I listened to a ton of Temptations growing up. My mom, my adopted mother, Juanita, loved the Temptations. I listened to a ton of Temptations. So this is the key. First of all, Phil, do you know what they call a go route in football? The nomenclature for it. It's a 9 route. It's a 9 route. If you know the Temptations, one of their best songs is Cloud 9. Cloud 9. In the song, it says, give yourself a chance and don't let life pass you by. This is a game where you're going against a bad pass defense, run some 9 routes, do fine on Cloud 9 with Dylan Raiola. Nebraska should do fine. UCLA's pass defense, second to last in the Big Ten. 270 yards a game they're allowing. I predict, again, if the weather's not crazy, that Dylan Raiola will break that 270 mark. And a big reason for it will be those 9 routes. Our boy Jalen Lloyd getting down the field on some big shots. Corey Barney on some shots. Probably throw a couple to Nair and Banks. Go after them. Take advantage of that porous pass defense. I think Raiola will have his best passing game of the season. Again, Nebraska doing fine on Cloud 9. And then key number 3 goes back to a song first written by Chuck Berry and then re-recorded by the king himself, Val Elvis. Well, just Elvis. Recorded it as well. He made it a hit. The song was called Promised Land. Mentioned this earlier. Another word for the red zone and the end zone is the Promised Land. And Nebraska needs to get to the Promised Land. They've got to finish drives. It's great that you move the ball inside the team's 46 times. That's wonderful. That's great. Congratulations. But when you're scoring less than 3 points every time you do that, that's horrible. That means you're having multiple drives where you get 0 points. Because think about the math. If you're getting 7, 6, getting 3, you shouldn't ever be below 3, right, when you get into that range, but Nebraska is. So they've got to fix that. Currently, Nebraska is 116th in points per trip when they cross the 40-yard line. And I mentioned UCLA's 132nd at letting teams cross it and 115th in points allowed. If Nebraska's going to score in the red zone, it's going to be Saturday at 2:30. It better be. Because if it's not, I don't know what to say about this offense. They kicked the field goals well last week, made 3 of them. They had 1 touchdown, and they had 1 drive that stopped inside the 2-yard line. You got to flip that. Get 3 touchdowns, maybe 1 field goal, no stops inside the 5-yard line, and Nebraska wins this game going away if they can do those things. When this line originally opened late Saturday night, Nebraska was favored by 10.5. It got hit. It dropped down. It's been moving around. Currently, the last time I looked, it was at 6.5. Nebraska favored by 6.5. The total is only 39.5. So what Vegas is expecting is Nebraska to win the game, to keep the score low, and win somewhere around where my score is. Now, I have a little bit higher than that. I've got 27-16, Nebraska covering the 6.5, winning by double digits, and taking care of business against a team that has really, really struggled most of the season. I know what you're thinking, though. Well, they're coming off of a bye. Doesn't mean a ton. I went through every game of every team that's played Nebraska or is going to play Nebraska and looked at how they did after the bye. The majority of those teams, of the 9 teams that Nebraska plays in the Big Ten, 6 of them have lost coming off a bye. Only 3 of them have won. So coming off a bye isn't the advantage. Hey, Nebraska came off a bye against Indiana and got blown out, right? Indiana came over a bye and they blew out Nebraska. But for the majority, 6 out of the 9, those teams have not won coming out of a bye. So the bye is not the big advantage people think of. I think Nebraska takes care of business. I think they win this game. Again, I picked 27-16. I think they win by double digits. If they don't, and they lose the game, and they fall short of bowl eligibility again for the 4th straight week, if that happens, and I know that it's about the process and it's about keeping your emotions under control, I have no idea what happens to this team because they play UCLA, then they have a bye, and then Nebraska goes out to USC. They lose this game. They lose a 3rd game in a row. They lose the way they lost to Indiana. Ohio State was a great game the way they played, but they lost it, and they lose to UCLA. All bets are off with the emotions of these teams for the rest of the season. But let's not think like that. Let's think Nebraska gets their 6th win, becomes bowl eligible for the first time since he's 21. Since Val was 14 years old. It's a long time ago. And 31 years old for young Phil. Last time they were bowl eligible. So let's take care of the business, become bowl eligible, and then see what happens the last 3 games of the season. You know, USC's not a juggernaut. They're not doing very well stopping physical teams. Wisconsin's been up and down. And Iowa, all of a sudden, doesn't play great defense. So you never know what happens. Special thanks. No guest, no co-host, but we do thank Phil McClain for being here. Not sure what he does, but he's here. Thank you very much to King Val Elvis for running the board and ordering these wonderful pretzels, one of which I'm going to take home. Anybody else can have the other one. I don't care. I'm taking one of them home. It'd be a happy Halloween for me with pretzels. Also, thanks to everybody who puts on the show, the folks here at Let It Fly. Reminder, if you haven't had a chance to get out to Let It Fly West in Elkhorn, check that out. Going out there and see what's going on. For some reason, my wife is calling me, even though she knows I'm doing a podcast. But get on out there and check that out. Also, thank you to Bud Light. As always, we appreciate them no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter what sport you're watching. It is easy drinking, easy buckets, touchdowns, spikes, whatever else. Throughout Nebraska, easy to drink and easy to enjoy. Also, thank you to our young astronaut that was on the set as well. Thank you to her. And remember, if we're listening, you're watching, please subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, however you listen to the show, however you watch the show. Subscribe and like. It helps us out a ton. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week. We'll have another guest. I'm pretty sure it'll be a football-related guest. We'll have that and much more when we return next week on Let It Fly Show.